Hey folks, it is me, Mike Vanderpool again. I'm going to continue my On Education series, and I think one of the things that I want to talk about right now are the expectations that a learner needs to have, the expectations that we as faculty members need to establish for learners in order for them to be successful in learning environments. Notice I'm not saying classroom, I'm not saying online, I'm not saying study hall, anything like that. Learning environments. It's important. Language is really, really important here. Which is also why I don't like the word student. I will always try to leverage the word learner instead, because the word student, right, comes from study, and studying is not how you learn. Studying is how you memorize enough to be able to pass a test. But we learn by doing, we learn by socializing, we learn by trying, failing, hypothesizing. We learn actively, which is why I did a video on active classroom, or how to manage an active classroom. But this video here, I want to focus on the learner. And this is really, really, really important because I've seen a lot of people in the learning environments that I work in take like the completely wrong approach to learning. Number one, and this is again something we have to establish, right? As a faculty member, as a facilitator, someone presenting, discussing, leading around material, we have to really focus on accepting the fact that our learners probably don't know what they need to know in order to be able to be successful in a learning environment. We need to establish the protocols, the expectations, not just up front, but continuously throughout the learning experience. And that's something I've failed at. It's an assumption I made coming into teaching in higher ed, that students would have been taught the skills in high school to be successful, but they're not. So the number one thing that I tell my students, and the expectation I set, and maybe this is right, maybe it's wrong, it's open for discussion. Everything I post here, I want to be able to have a discussion, because if in education we can't talk about ideas and strategies and the things that we're doing, then what in the freak are we even doing here? So my approach is, number one, this is me talking to a student, you are going to get out of this class, workshop, learning experience what you put into it. That's the bottom line. There is nothing that I can do to make you learn this. I may be able to provide some spark of motivation, but I cannot be your sustaining motivation. My level of give a shit is going to be this much more than yours. And as yours moves up, so will mine. But in order for me to survive as an educator, I just have to be a little bit above you with regards to where I'm at with trying to motivate you and caring about your learning. If you are not going to take ownership of your own learning, then you are probably wasting your time in my classroom. And that's a bottom line. It's kind of hard for some people to hear. Because again, I think the model previously was, hey, you sit in this seat, you study for a test, you pass the test, congratulations, move on to the next grade. But myself as an instructor, teacher, fellow learner, is not to impart wisdom on you or open your brain and dump stuff in. My job is to teach you how to learn this subject. Because in order for you as a student to be successful, you have to be a continuous learner. That's why, they say do what you love, and I'm going to change it up a little bit. Do what you love to learn. That's because that's what it's going to take in order for you to be successful. Or I guess maybe give you your best chance at success. There's other ways to be successful. But for your best chance at success, do what you love to learn. The expectation when you come into my classroom, number one, you will get out of this what you put into it. Number two, I will not be your sustaining motivation. Number three, and this is a big one, I will not give you a checklist on what to do to earn an A. Because if I give you a checklist of what to do to earn an A, I'm sorry, if I can write that checklist, somebody someday is going to be able to write a program to do that, and guess what? You're out of a job. So, the other thing that I want to make crystal clear in my classroom is that this is not a tutorial. Nor is this, I will give you the answer. That is not how learning works. Learning works by you thinking. That's the bottom line. Thinking. What if? Well, Mr. Vanderpool, what should I do here? And I'll help, but I will never say, do this. I will always say, oh, what about this? Or why did you do that? Or ask you questions and engage in a conversation. Because if I tell you what to do, you're not learning. You're memorizing, maybe, and you may be remembering. But we live in a world, they don't give a shit if you can memorize the list of the periodic table of elements. I'm sorry. What the world needs now, other than love, sweet love, is people who can solve problems creatively. And that's what I want to emulate in my classroom. And one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for being able to do that is to be able to critically think. So for me, in my classroom, I care less about the answer that you're giving. I care more about why you're giving the answer. That's why with a lot of the questioning, a lot of the learning that goes on, it should come from a lot of self-reflection and explanation and thinking about your thinking, right? Metacognition. So in my classroom, in my learning experience, you're gonna have to write a journal every week about why, what, why, how you did what you did, where you struggled, where you had an aha moment, where you failed, where you succeeded, what went right, what went wrong, what would you do differently. A post-mortem every week on your learning experience. Because that's where the real learning happens. Real learning happens in reflection and thinking about your thinking. And unfortunately, as much as I would like to be able to just make that a requirement, hey, yes, you're going to do that, or I should say a suggestion that you're going to do because you care enough about your own learning, in the environment that I'm in, I've found that I've had to make that a graded thing. And that's fine, because it has value, right? One of the things that we have to accept, especially in higher ed, or especially in some system where grades are given, is that a lot of this stuff is around grades is complete BS. And the values that we've put on these things, we can't change because they're so firmly established in our culture. So putting value on it as points is a necessity. Which leads me to the other thing that you're going to have to do in my classroom. Not only reflect on yourself or on your own thinking, you're also going to have to take personal responsibility for getting stuff done. Two things here. Number one, I'm not going to give you a written specification unless the job warrants it. I'm probably going to give you some idea, and you're going to write that down, and you're going to have questions, and you need to ask me those questions. Because having a conversation and a dialogue is after critical thinking, being able to communicate and discuss ideas is the most important thing to becoming a creative problem solver. Asking for clarification when you need it. Restating things in your own words so you understand what you're being asked to do. Hugely important. So that's the other big piece of the puzzle. Personal responsibility, not only taking, writing things down around the task and asking those questions, but there's also your deadlines. Now, I've gone back and forth on this. I used to move deadlines in my classroom based on where we were at, because I'm trying to do a mix of growth and proficiency. So, not making an assignment due until we've actually come to the point where things are due. But in this new model that I'm using, I'm going to be able to give hard and fast due dates for things, and we'll be able to then, I'll be able to then only grade or assess what's been covered in the class and I feel you're comfortable with, but then also require you to resubmit based on adding new things to it. So I think this minimal assignment, minimal graded formative assessments is going to work out really well, and I'll fill you in on that after I test out this next semester. I tested out the frequency and the resubmission factor here this past semester, but now with adding in the firm dates